Football is more than just a game. It's about passion, community, and a deep-rooted history that spans generations. And for over 60 years, Hanover Football Club has been at the heart of Portadown, shaping players, creating memories, and building a legacy that stands the test of time. From humble beginnings to hard-fought victories, from local rivalries to moments of triumph, Hanover's story is one of resilience, commitment, and pride. This is more than just a football club. It's a family, a tradition, and a symbol of what the beautiful game means to so many. In this special series, we're taking you on a journey through time, exploring the club's founding years, the legends who wore the blue and white, the challenges overcome, and the bright future ahead. Through interviews, archives, and first-hand accounts, we'll uncover the story of Hanover FC like never told before. This is the history of Hanover Football Club. This is our story. So the team took a break then in 1974, and you thought that was it, dead and buried, but it started up again in 1975 and Rowley came in as the manager. So what do you think that it was that got the team started up again, or how did the interest come about?
I think it was because the name Hanover, and there's rumour mill flying about we're going to start again, and boys who had played before heard that we're going to go back in 75-76 season, and the momentum just kept going. And I think the vast majority of boys who played for Hanover wanted to come back.
So that was my next question. So how did you manage to get back, with Rowley coming in, how did you manage to get back all of those players that either weren't playing football or had went and signed for other teams, like Norman Donaldson, Dennis Crowe, Dennis Brown, even Albert Campbell? How did they all come back to Hanover?
Through word of mouth. The guys socialised together. I think it was mostly Rowley and Guffer and Morris McClure. I think they were the main three driving force behind the comeback. And then obviously with players leaving who were stopped playing football, there's new players come in. And I think basically that was it.
So Grass, you also signed around that time, so what was it that attracted you to come and sign for Hanover, especially saying they were in Division 3 and you had previously played for the like of Tandragee who were in Division 1?
After Tandragee, I signed for New Century and played with them for a couple of years. And whenever they Hanover first broke up for that year, a few of the guys, i.e. Guffer, Pep and a few others, came over and signed for New Century. And it was then mooted then that perhaps Hanover would start again the following year. Well, I thought nothing more about it, and I was in the Bodega bar one Saturday afternoon, and Rowley came in, along with Morris McClure and Danny Brown. And obviously Albert was working in the bar at this time. So Rowley came over and says, Grass, he says, would you sign for Hanover? We're thinking of starting up again. And it was a no-brainer because I knew a lot of the lads there, and it was a pleasure to sign for them.
And is that where you were sort of meeting and running out of then, the Bodega back then?
Yeah, that's where most of the guys from Hanover would have went. I came from the other side of the bridge, but it didn't matter. They were all good blokes on this side as well.
So you basically you went into Division 3 then, and you had this team all got back together. So you were basically playing in Division 3 then with a team that had won the Division 1 title 3 years earlier. So, Paul, did you feel like you were head and shoulders above the other teams, or were you expecting to win it straight away?
Oh, we were expecting to win it straight away. Actually, the middle of the league were looking to put us in Division 4. So we got into Division 3, and as I say, the rest is history. You know, we destroyed teams. We weren't big-headed or anything like that. We're a Division 1 team playing in Division 3. It's as simple as that.
So you obviously won Division 3 that year. What about the other cups or anything? Did you go in any cup runs or win anything else?
The third division cup was called the O'Hara Cup, I think. We got the final of that, and we were beating that near the end of the season, and I didn't play in it. Sippy trainer made his debut. No, sorry, he didn't. It was a year after that Sippy made his debut, but no, I didn't play in that final.
Did you play in that final, Grass?
Yeah.
Can you remember anything about it?
No. Really can't, being honest.
I believe that in that final, Hanover had 2 players sent off, which is probably the reason why they didn't win it. That final, Dennis Crowe and Norman Donaldson both got their marching orders in that final, which was the reason why they didn't win the final.
So what was it like with Rowley coming in as the manager? So all the team had knew really up until that point was Ramey. And then you also had the trainer, Robbie Dobbin, and there was a real reputation of professionalism in Hanover training and how tough it was. So did this continue with Rowley as manager, or did anything change?
We didn't have training. We didn't train when we were in the third division. Robbie Dobbin, I think, had left and went to Dungannon Swifts. But we're all fit young men anyway at the end of the day. And without being big-headed, the third division was probably too easy for us, if you know what I mean. But the camaraderie was there. Rowley was a good manager. We had no team talk. He come to each individual player and he told you what you had to do. You knew what you had to do. The only one he didn't go to was Albert Campbell, because he told me one time, doesn't need to talk to Albert. Albert knew what to do. And when you're playing with Albert in the same team, Albert, he just brought you along. We were one of the first teams when we played out from the back, because Grass had an ingrown toenail and he couldn't kick the ball. So we had 2 fullbacks, myself and Morris McClure, who went looking for the ball. And if we didn't get it, Grassy just gave it to Albert. And then you had the likes of Robbie Pepper, Dennis Brown playing in midfield, and Norman playing in midfield.
So obviously then after winning Division 3, you were promoted into Division 2. So Tony, it was around this time then that you signed. So what attracted you to Hanover, or why did you come and sign for us?
Well, my signing for Hanover was not a difficult decision. I grew up in Clowna Park, and my flat actually overlooked the pitch that Hanover played on, so I could look out my bedroom window or stand in the back balcony and watch Hanover playing. So I did that there from an early age. I watched the teams that you talked of earlier with Norman and Tucker Porter and these guys all playing. I used to watch those teams, so I did. So Hanover were my local club. So when Guffer asked me to sign for Hanover, it was a no-brainer.
So how did you find it coming into the team then as, a young teenager, like playing with more experienced players like Albert Campbell and Donaldson and Crowe and Morris McClure?
Yeah, it was a bit intimidating at first, but once you got to know the guys, it was easy, because they made it easy for you. They made this easy for me, especially people like Albert and Morris McClure. They were like minders, so they were. If I was getting a tough time on the pitch, then those guys would have sorted it out.
So it was that year then in Division 2 that you really had a clean sweep, and you won the Division 2 title, the Foster Cup and the Alan Wilson Cup. So Paul, what do you think it was that was the recipe for success that year?
The recipe for success that year was a couple of new players coming in. Division 3 team, there's a couple of players left. So the players that come in were basically replaced those players that left, who were very, very good. Yo-Yo McAnally coming in. You had Davy Pearson coming in. You had players like that who first team, who had Middlesbrough League first division experience, B division experience, and they were super players. They were absolutely super players. And that's what made it easier. You're playing against better teams, but you still you still up your game. We still had Albert playing, who was a major influence on us all. And that's just, we just kept it going.
Yeah, if I could also say there that I think the main reason we were so successful that year was with a settled team. I think Rowley had a squad of about 14 or 15 players who played the whole season together. We were lucky injury-wise, so we were, but the team was basically the same week in, week out.
Grass, you were doing nets at this time period, so what would the sort of back four have been, or what was it like doing nets whenever you had like a big Albert in front of you?
It was a dream. Albert Campbell, was such a pleasure to play with him. He was great to get on with. Talk to you before the match, talk to you during the match. Grass this, grass that, blah, blah, blah. He was a fantastic player. Plus the back four, Morris McClure. I'm just looking at a photograph here. Morris McClure, there's Trevor McConnell, Pep, Danny Crowe, Dennis Brown. James E. Keith's name hasn't been mentioned here. He was a dream as well. It was a great squad. And as I say, the camaraderie before and after the match, during and after the match, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It was a fantastic team to play for at that time.
So, Tony, did you basically go unbeaten that season then, or what was the story of the season?
We entered 3 trophies that season. We were entered for 3 trophies that season, and we won all 3 of them. We won the league unbeaten. We won the Foster Cup, and we won the Alan Wilson Cup. When I say we won the league unbeaten, we were league champions, but we had to fulfill our fixture, and we had one final game to play right at the end of the season. And that was a home game, which we actually played at Kiernan because Brownstown was closed for the summer. And it was played on a Saturday morning, and just to fulfill the fixture, we managed to put a team out, but it was not our regular team, and we lost that game. The last game of the season, of an invincible unbeaten season, we actually lost the last game. It didn't mean anything because the league was over, but it spoiled the perfect record.
Had there been too many celebrations on the Friday night?
Yes, definitely. There were guys who didn't turn up. There were guys who did turn up, but were in a, shall we say, a less than happy state. But we played the match. So we did. Garfield played in it. I don't think Paul was there on that match. You were probably playing cricket, but Garfield played the match, but a lot of the other guys weren't there. They either told us they couldn't make it or they didn't turn up. But looking back on it, it spoiled a perfect season, but at the time we didn't know, we didn't care.
And what was the support back then? So you had won 3 trophies, so...
Well, the Alan Wilson final, I can remember it was played up at Milford, Everton. You changed in the Institute, the old Institute, and then you played down in this field that they had next to the river. We were playing a team, Lurgan Institute, in the final, who were a fair side as well. It was 6-0 at half time for Hanover. It finished up 8-2. And can I say that the celebrations were afterwards in town here in the Bodega was very good, to say the least.
You won Division 3 then, you won Division 2 then, and those cups, and then that was you then back into Division 1.
Yeah.
So, whenever you went into Division 1 then, Paul, how did you get on in that season back in Division 1?
It was just a continuation. Certain players left again, and certain players come in. And those players who replaced the players who left were just as good as the players that left, if you know what I mean. And the camaraderie was still there. We're back in the first division, which was a lot tougher. But we had the core of Hanover. And it was just a continuation on of what we were doing.
So was that the season? Was it basically your Hanover and Loughgall then going for the league title then?
Yeah, it was
Hanover, Loughgall, and New Sanctuary.
Milford.
and Milford Avon, and that was the 4 best teams in the first division at that time.
So Tony, what are your memories of that season, sort of 1978, back in Mid Ulster Division 1?
Well, we got back into Division 1. Now, Division 2 was not easy. I know Paul says Division 3 was easy, but Division 2 had been tough enough. There were good teams in Division 2, the likes of Hill Street Institute and all. So it set us up for Division 1. We got back into Division 1 and we carried on just as we had in Division 2. We were unbeaten. Coming up to Christmas of that year, we were 6 points clear at the top of the league. We went to play a match, I can always remember this, we went to play New Century away from home. We were 2-0 up and we were coasting, but one of our players made let's say a stupid tackle, got himself sent off. The game descended into a bit of a kicking match and we ended up losing it 3-2. Somehow we managed to lose the match 3-2, and after that game we went on a run of about 5 or 6 games where we didn't win a match. A couple of draws, 3 or 4 defeats. Ironically, that bad run ended when New Century came back to Brownstown and we beat them there and we picked up again, but it was too little too late and Loughgall beat us for the league. And then, to rub salt into the wounds, they also beat us in the cup final. So from going for another double, the second year in a row, we ended up winning nothing.
So that was sort of like, that slowed your momentum then. You were on this upward trajectory and you had won the 3rd division, won the 2nd division, going well in the 1st division, but then it didn't come to fruition. So would you say that this lost your momentum and started a bit of a difficult period then for Hanover on the pitch?
Yes, definitely. I think that was the beginning of a downwards turn for the club, for the team on the pitch and for the club. That year, some of our elder statesmen, our stalwart players, left then. The likes of Albert Campbell quit, and Morris McClure, I think, finished as well. And all in all, things took a downward turn at the end of that season and going into the next season.
So you had mentioned there a few elder players had left, so that team was maybe aging and coming to the end of its day. I think Rowley also left then in 1980 as well, and I know you had spoke previously off camera about around that time period we were struggling a wee bit financially, and we were still running out of other people's bars like Burke's or the Metal Box, and we didn't really have any income or any sponsors. I think, could you want to tell us sort of how the club kept running there? I think you had said about your father even chipping in and helping to pay for kits and different things.
Well, yes, there was a lot of difficulty off the pitch. So there was. I wasn't involved. I in the running of the club. I didn't know the ins and outs. But Guffer was the main man off the pitch. My father was helping him, so he was. But let's just say that the club were in a very dicey position financially. So they were, and they needed an input, or they were looking at folding.
So, Paul, you would have been great friends with Rowley, so how did it come about that Rowley sort of left the manager's position in 1980?
Rowley was my brother-in-law. He was married to my sister, and he was a plumber by trade, and he was doing a lot of homers, and he was in the business of going out on his own, so that took up weekend work as well. And the fact that after getting back into Division 1 and being so close to doing the double, as Tony said, players left and replaced with other players, of course, younger players. I myself was coming to an age where I was thinking of quitting myself or retiring. And business-wise, that's the reason why Rowley took a step back, because he was going into self-employment.
Even though there were different managers over the years, you would hear a lot that Guffer was almost the person that was going out and signing people, and a lot of people actually signed for Guffer. So would you think this is the case, Tony?
Definitely. Guffer, I know Guffer got me to sign. He actually wanted me to sign a year earlier than I signed, but amazingly, I didn't sign that year, which is a 75 season, because my father objected. He didn't want me to sign for Hanover Football Club, which is ironic because if you look over there on the wall, you'll see his photograph on the memorial wall. He went on to become chairman of the club. But when I was first asked to sign for Hanover by Guffer, my dad said, no, you don't want to sign for them. So, yes, but it was Guffer who got me to sign for Hanover. Rowley was the manager, but it was Guffer who signed me.
So, Tony, you just spoke to us there about a bit of a rough patch from the clubs sort of the late 70s and early 80s. But during this time, we were also making signings as well, and we had the likes of Zippy and Dickie, yourselves, that had joined the club. So, Dickie, what was some of your earliest memories of coming down to Hanover in the late 70s?
Well, actually, when I played football in the Carpet Factory Works League, that's all I played. And mine, Davy Swain, worked in the Carpet Factory. He was a very good footballer, played for Lough. And he asked me what I signed for Lough. I said, I think I'm good for that type of football. He says, you are. I said, that's all right. And then 3 days later, I was walking home around Brownstown, this car pulled up. He says, UK's Dixon. I says, aye, it was Guffer. I didn't know Guffer was, or never seen him before. He says, I hear you're signed for Lough. How do you hear that? He says, I hear everything. I went to sign for Hanover. He says, jump into the car and go for a drive. That's the way Guffer operated. So at the end of the day, I thought about it, and he says, sure, Sippy's at Hanover. And signed China. Then Gillespie, he was a very good footballer too. I says, all right, I'll sign for yous. Then to go back into work and tell Davy Swain, I'm not signing for Lough.
So you already knew Davy, and you told him you were signing for Lough, but this fella that you'd never knew before locked up in a car, and he ended up getting you to sign.
That's Guffer. The way he talks to you, like Arthur Daly or Delby rolled into one.
Zippy, how did you come to sign for Hanover then? Did you play for anybody before that?
I'd played for Day Blues, so I just can't remember how long and what, but the natural thing for me was my mates were playing for Hanover. The boys I grew up with were all from Brownstown, so that was the thing to do. I think yet again Guffer came looking at me, asked me to sign, and that's basically the way it went, you know.
As well as players signing in this time period, another influential person came to Hanover who wasn't a player, so Ivan Orr came in. So, Tony, do you have any memories of Ivan coming in, or what he done, or how he influenced the club positively?
Well, yes, I can remember Ivan coming in. I think it was Guffer who brought him in. It bound to have been Guffer because no one else would have been there to do it, so it had to be Guffer. And like most of the guys here, I didn't know Ivan Orr. Personally, I didn't know who he was, but I know he had a positive effect when he came in because he put money into the club. He actually kept us afloat. So he did at that time. We were in danger of going under, but Ivan kept us afloat.
You had spoke to off camera about the difficult period of Hanover, and we didn't really have any sponsorship, and I can see from the photos that as soon as Ivan came in, really, then you ended up with a sponsor. So you had Ivan Orr Motors on the front of the kits, and I think you also had a minibus as well.
Yes, that was one of the things he done. We used to go to away matches just in 4 or 5 guys jumping into a car and heading. Ivan gave us a minibus, or he gave us the use of a minibus for our away trips, and both first team and second team took advantage of that.
So Grass, Ivan Orr came in then and took on a bit of a sponsorship / chairman role, and I know that he was involved in getting you to come and sign for the club. So can you tell me a bit about that story?
I'd just finished my Irish League career with Distillery, and it was driving the motor where it was always seemed to be needing fixed. And Ivan's name came up. He had a garage workshop down on Hartfield Street and put it down. And any time I brought the motor down, he was always asking me questions about signing for Hanover. And at that stage, I knew nothing about Hanover, even though as a local man living in Portadown all my life. I knew very little about them. But I listened to what he had to say and decided to go up and just to see what their facilities were like up in Brownstown. And the minute I seen the pitch and the facilities that they had changing rooms, I thought I'd give it a try, so I did, and the rest is history from then.
What is that sort of what convinced you to sort of sign from Lisburn Distillery? Like, I don't think you were very old, maybe just 28 at the time, so what convinced you to leave them and come to a much smaller Hanover?
I think most of my problem was after the Irish League. I think it was the travelling. I was starting to get my travelling here, and Tuesday and Thursday nights having to train with the Irish League. And I said, it was safer. I've always enjoyed my football, but I said to myself, it's just time to stay local, so I haven't all the travelling to do.
So who was the manager then whenever you came in?
It was a local man I'd known since I was a child, a man called Trevor McClure. Trevor was the manager. How he became manager of Hanover, I don't know, to tell you the truth. But I have known Trevor, as I said, all my life. I used to play football with him and against him, being brought up in Eden Derry, and that's how I got to know him. So I knew him and I knew who I was dealing with when I first signed, and that was helping me to sign for Hanover.
Who would have been sort of the main players then whenever you first came down to the club, or who was involved with running the club then?
At that time, Guffer, like he's been all right through his career with Hanover, Guffer was always one you could speak to, and he was always in the background, helping everybody along. Donaldson was there, Dennis Crowe was there, the older players from the start of the formation of Hanover, they were there. I had the experience, so I knew what I was letting myself in for, and knew what the standard of football would have been like. And like I say, I knew it was going to be a rough and tumble kind of football. It wouldn't be any fancy dance, so I accepted it.
So, we'd spoken earlier about the bit of a rough patch then, sort of the late 70s, early 80s, and in 1982 we got relegated out of Division 1 into Division 2. Grass, whenever you came in then, sort of in your first season, we ended up getting promoted back into Division 1, so can you tell me a bit about that?
It got to the stage after a couple of months the team were playing well, so we were picking up good results, the team were playing well, there was young fellas in, there was plenty of experience, and what a smashing goalkeeper, a fella from Lurgan, Ian New Pritchard, and like I said, he saved us that many times, excuse me, when we were up against it. But the season went, and then after a couple of months, Trevor decided that he would leave, and Ivan approached me because of my experience, and he asked me would I take over the run of the club. When I say the club, the football end of it, and I agreed, wholeheartedly. So I did with my experience, and the rest is just history.
So how did the season go, or how did you end up getting promoted?
It was between ourselves and Armagh Thistle at that time, and St Mary's were in our coattails, so they were hanging in there. The season went well, and we thought we were going to get the second place, and because Armagh were too many points in front of us. But then an incident happened where St Mary's lodged a protest against ourselves, because at that time Norman Donaldson, who had played for us in the season, he started taking up the refereeing and was doing refereeing at the Mid-Ulster matches. And it came to their attention that you couldn't referee and play at the same time. So they put a protest in against us, and then we had to put a protest against St Mary's because they had a player who was doing the exact same thing. So the league decided it would come down to a playoff between ourselves and St Mary's for the second spot in the division. That was played, I'm not quite sure, I think it was up at Lagall's pitch, and we prevailed, we won it, so we did. We were lucky enough to get promoted then that year.
So that playoff match then against St Mary's, did you play in that match, Dickie?
Yeah, I did. was a quite crowd on it, like, so it was. The atmosphere was very tense, like, so it was, because of the rivalry between the two teams from the town, like. It was a hard-fought match. I mean, we Terry McCrory, I think it was his first season, it was only about 16 or 17 he was playing. He went to get the ball one time on one of their players, big strong boy, he whacked him, knocked him in his ass. And Packer was playing, me and Packer playing along the back, says, get up, don't be taking that off him. And then about 5 minutes later, Packer went straight through that way, who hit wee Terry. Like, it was that type of match, like, but it was a lot of stake. You know,
what about the support as well?
Oh, there was core support. And then there was a bit of a fight halfway through the match with the crowd. Like, I'd say we outnumbered them 3-1. But it was stopped. I think it was stopped for a couple of minutes. And then started up again. And then when we won, that was brilliant, like.
So
it was like winning the league.
Yeah, so you ended up winning the match anyway, and then that was he's promoted back up into Division 1.
Tucker, you have a great family connection to Hanover, so you yourself have played. Your brother-in-law, Guffer, played and run the club for many a year. Your wife, Molly, was heavily involved in the club and even washed the kits. Your son-in-law, Davy's a committee member. Ollie, your grandson, plays for the 16s, and your other grandson now plays for the first team, and your son Mark had played. So what do you think it is about Hanover that sort of keeps your family coming back, and why is it that Hanover is so important to your family?
Guffer would be the main reason. Guffer would be the main reason.
You can answer that.
Yeah, well, I'm saying Guffer, for all the Tucker names coming back here, Guffer would have been the main reason, because Tucker's married to Guffer's sister, as you know, and Guffer was my best mate, like. I even miss him now myself, like. But that's the reason why Tucker's family's so close to the club.
Well, Guffer's sort of a legendary figure round here,
Oh,
and
definitely.
even now, you know, 30 odd years after he's passed away,
Definitely.
without exaggerating, people would probably mention his name in here every week.
If Hanover's mentioned, Guffer would be mentioned.
Yeah.
Yep.
He would have played, and then did he move into management, or how did he sort of end up with all these roles, you know, like secretary or whatever he was doing behind the scenes?
He was just the man to go to for Hanover. You know, nobody maybe didn't else want it, but Guffer was the man to go to. He knew everything about the club. So
Not only that, he would have got you
anything at all.
From a record player like yours.
He knew everybody then.
Oh, serious. In fact, one time, I was on shift work and come home on it was a Thursday. And of course, the Guffer, he was lying on the couch, and I noticed a tray that Wally had made him a fry, and this here was 2:30 in the day. So he says to me, he says, I'll give you a shout a Friday, or Saturday. He says, where we're going. He says, I'll give you a shout at 2 o'clock. So Saturday came, and of course, I put the good rags on where we went, but he had borrowed a Jaguar car. So where we went anyhow, and on the M1 he says where we're going, you're all right. But I noticed we went up the Lisbon Road, and he pulled into a side street. We walked up, and there was a bar, and that was the Linfield players used that bar.
Right.
So I says, what's the score? Says, you're all right. And I noticed this wee man coming in with a briefcase. It was an orange briefcase. It was about that thickness. So after half an hour, I says to myself, that face is familiar. And of course, the Guffer here, the Hannah, well, Wally, what about you? Well, Guffer, what about you? And it was Willie Henderson, the Rangers. Serious, knew everybody.
So I want to talk now about Guffer. So this sort of time period of the 80s and late 80s, he would have been the main man. So Zippy, what are some of the things you can remember that Guffer would have done to try and help run the club or get us kits or fundraise?
Guffer got most of the sponsorship. So he did. He seemed to be in the know all the time. He knew people that would do that sort of thing. And he had the knack on him to go and ask them people for money and to help the club out. Personally, Guffer himself, I was out of work at one time, and instead of going to the brew, he went to Guffer and he got the job, which he did, which I was always grateful for, you know. He's just that type of person, you know, and he would do things. Sometimes he done things that you didn't really believe was happening, but he was usually behind most things to do with the club, like.
He was just sort of a man about town and sort of knew everybody.
He was, and he had a heart to go, like, you know. He just was that type of person, lovable person, like.
Grass, what are your memories from that time period of sort of the late 80s about things Guffer used to do when he was trying to run the team and raise funds?
I've known Guffer from probably 1975. No, wasn't involved in football or Hanover at that time, just socialising. And when I came into Hanover, Guffer was there helping Ivan Orr. But then when Ivan left, Guffer was the main man. Some of the things that he'd done for Hanover and how he got the money and that helped keep the club running was unbelievable. He was just the Arthur Daly, Dell boy of Portadown. Some of the things that he'd get up to, all legal, was beyond me, and people used to laugh at some of the. I remember when he used to bring the tracksuits, and the tracksuits, shell suits as they called them, Guffer used to have a line of them, how he got them or where he got them from, nobody knew, but they were all in fashion at that time. Guffer was selling them there, any money he'd make, he'd put it into the club. He would do the sparkling champagne coming up to Christmas, £1 a bottle. I don't know how much he was buying it for, but he was always making a profit on it. He used to go over to Blackpool, his favourite spot, and come home with a load of toys coming up at Christmas and things like that there. And you could go on and speak for Guffer. I think everybody who's met Guffer or been in his company, even socialising, has a story to tell about the man. He's always been held in high regards from all the ones who have been associated with Hanover. Everybody has their own story to tell, and like I say, even to this day, I know his name's always mentioned in conversations, and when the boys are socialising, you always remember about the things that he used to do. Favourite of mine is the time he ran the bus over to the World Cup between Northern Ireland and England for a qualifying match. The cheap tickets that he got, how he got them was unbelievable. He had bought a bus to run, I think it was about 50 of us going over, and we had to go through Leicester on a road to Wembley. And unfortunately, the bus that Guffer had bought, it broke down in Leicester. So it had, and we were marooned there, and everybody was making phone calls how we were going to get on our way up to London. Guffer, he wasn't on the bus. He had taken the flight, him and Tommy McCabe. So they must have knew that we were going to run into this misfortune. They were taking no chances. But some of the trips that he done and under the name of Hanover was unbelievable. There was always to Scotland, the times he was friends with Jimmy Nicholl. Where Jimmy Nicholl seemed to go, Guffer would always follow him. Dunfermline, Raith Rovers, everywhere. And like I say, it was always Guffer behind that there. And some of the things that he had brought to Brownstown Park and Portadown in general, both sides of the community, that's the best about it. Things that he run, but some of the things you wouldn't think of nowadays, like an indoor circus. I remember bringing my son up in Brownstown Park to an indoor circus, and all it was pet snakes and tarantulas. So it was just Guffer all through, and all Guffer was thinking about making money for the club. Like I say, he'll always missing. Like I say, he was probably my best friend, and I think of him still to this day, and he'll always be in our hearts.
One of the things Guffer was famous for too was bringing people and events down to Brownstown Park. So Probably the most famous was in bringing George Best down to play Hanover in 1988. So, Zippy, what can you remember about the match that day?
On that day, because there were so many of us and everybody needed to get a game, I was only sub that day. I was a wee bit disappointed. But, as I say, everybody had to have a go, so that was fine enough. So I was being put on in the second half. And as I was going to go on to play, I was called over the side and was told, on no circumstances do you kick George Best. I said, well, that's fair enough, that's fine enough. 10 minutes into the game, George Best was making a wee buyout of me, passing the ball through my legs, doing different things. You weren't allowed to kick him. So, tried my best not to kick him. Along comes Jane Gillespie, who obviously wasn't listening or caring, and put him up in the air. And he done it, so I didn't do it, that's fine. So it was.
Dickie, what's your memories of that day?
Well, it was my fault I dropped you as a manager. It was a great occasion, like, definitely it was. I mean, we're all getting changed, and Donaldson come in to give us a pep talk. No, don't be kicking Best, or don't be, especially me and Sippy, and I think it was China, because he says, use boys tackling, cut it out. Maybe no problem, Norman. So went out, played the match, and during the match, I mean Jackie Fulton, and I didn't even know he played football. I just see him on TV, talking about sport. He was playing out in the left wing and he cut in like a ballerina, no dancing. And he hit one from about 20 or 30 yards, top corner net like a rocket. I went, I didn't know he played football. And then the boy said after he played for Distillery and all in the Irish League. I never knew that there. And I mind, I scored. Grass went down the right wing and sent a lovely ball on the side forward and past Dunlap, and I went like that then. And then Maga scored a screamer, header. But we were a bit forward too, like. But it was just to be in the pitch for Best and watch him run about. Even that day, he must have been 38 or 39. He was still, see, for touring and all, he was still like lightning, you know.
Who are some other big names you could see looking down
yes,
that team after the All-Star team?
Jackie Fulton. And that's Jackie Fulton's tap at the match. I tried to get Best. I don't know who got Best tap.
So you didn't know Jackie Fulton played football and
he
ended up coming away with his top?
Oh, aye. Well, gold. And Remy McCoy was probably one of the best Irish League players I ever seen. I played against McCoy. He was some player, just flowed over the pitch. Colin O'Neill, after that match, Colin O'Neill, like, he was a poor down. I think he was poor down. And then the following season he went to Mallwell, but I'm near sure that Best's agent, who played in that match as well, put a word in for him in clubs in Scotland. Near 100%, that's sure. That's how he got, because of that match. Like, just think about it, if we hadn't had that match, O'Neill mightn't have even went to Scotland. And George Dunlap was one of the best top Linfield goalkeepers ever of all time. Like, I even think he played Irish. He might have played for Northern Ireland all the time. He did, aye. And then the local boys, Brian Little was a great player, but he got his knee wrecked, cut his career short. And then you have Dean McCullough, Neil McCullough, and Gary McCullough. They were very, very good players. Like, it was great day all around for everybody. Like.
So there was a full lineup of events that day as well as the match. So there was things like fire breathers and a bed of nails. There was a baby contest, and there was Punch and Judy clown show. So Grass, what all can you remember about that day?
The day was a great success for the area and Portadown, so it was. I remember one of the things that Guffer had said to us before the football and the tournament started was there was 3 entrances into Brownstown Park at that time, and Guffer decided he had put some of the players on the gates to lift fees to the public coming in. But besides that, people were looking around, because it was a public park, how are you going to take an entrance fee? But Guffer didn't worry about that. He was hoping to make a few quid, for the day for the club. But if somebody had said to me when I first signed for Hanover that we're going to be playing someday against George Best, I wouldn't have believed it. But going down the list of programmes for the day, like I said, when you look at them, they're a bed of nails, an indoor circus, meat wars, gummidge. But the day was a complete success. So it was. I think it's still talked about the day, even though George Best had made a few appearances in the Portadown area with other teams, playing exhibition matches. Like I say, it's still talked about the day, the time he came to Branchtown Park. After the match, like I say, it was a great success also. The community centre had laid on food for us just beside the football pitch. And like I say, everybody was invited in, and just to even get to talking to George Best, and he had his wife at that time. And the man was just a legend, so it is. To think now, everybody who's played for Hanover, most of us that day, can put it down in our CV, we played against George Best, probably one of the greatest players who ever played the game. And it's been a privilege, to say and look at the photographs, that time from our careers.
So, Dickie, as well, that day, as well as playing the match in the community centre after, did you go out or anything that night?
Well, we're in the community centre, and then we got sandwiches and stuff, mingled with the Best and his friends at the time. And then we went up to Bork's Bar, they sponsored us. And we all went in there, and George was with his father. His father, he didn't drink. Even George wasn't drinking. He just sat in his father to the road, and then I went over and I sat with him for about 10 or 15 minutes talking about football, and mostly about his father, because his father was big into BB football, Boys Brigade. And he says that's where I started, just round the corner there from Aberth Church, Boys Brigade, and he said that's great, for kids to go to Boys Brigade and then learn how to play football. And then was talking away to George about things like that. He said the same. And then went back to my mates, where I was drinking with, it was great, who'd ever think, would you think about it, walking into a bar and sitting with George Best and his father? Who gets out in life, huh?
So in the late 80s then, we'd see a lot of new players really coming into the setup, and one of them was yourself, Nigel. So could you tell me a bit about yourself first coming down to Hanover, and some of the young players from around the area that was coming around at the same time as you?
When I came down to Hanover, it was just all through Guffer, because everybody from the area went to the youth club 2 or 3 nights a week. Guffer knew you played football. He was on your back right away. Sign for Hanover, sign for Hanover. We were 14 or 15 at the time, so we were all either with junior teams or Portadown thirds, or some of the older boys would have been with the reserves. But I played for the Portadown thirds in the morning, probably when I was about 15, 16, and then played for Hanover in the afternoon. So you were playing 2 games every Saturday, every week, myself, Patsy Porter, Noel Richardson, the 3 of us, all done the same thing. Grass was a manager at the time, so everybody knew what sort of player Grass was, what sort of character he was, and everybody wanted to play for him. So,
did you feel like there was a bit of that sort of older group, was nearly phasing out, and then you had a lot of sort of good young players that were all very local to the area coming through, the like of yourself and, Wayne Stewart and Patsy and Gary McCullough and people like that?
Yeah, Dickie was sort of playing a bit, Sippy trainer, and boys were all sort of going out of the first team into the second team. So there's all the young lads coming through. Jeff McCann was the goalkeeper, Ian Love, Timmy Murdoch. So it was all real fresh blood coming through at that time,
And did you feel sort of Hanover had a good reputation, at the time? You'd going to the youth club and knocking about around Branchtown, and I'm sure you'd probably watched a few Hanover matches. So was it sort of a no-brainer for you to come down and sign for Hanover whenever Guffer was asking you?
Well, you were from Branchtown or Killigamane, so everybody from the area, Hanover were the team to play for. Like, you know, if you didn't make it anywhere else, Hanover were the main team in the Mid-Ulster that everybody wanted to play for.
So with that sort of new young team coming through then, Hanover hadn't won a trophy in a long time. I think the last trophy that they won was in 1977. So if we fast forward a wee bit then from the late 80s and on then to 1992, actually got to the Bass Bowl final and ended up winning it, which was our first trophy in 15 years. So you were probably, you know, still a young player at that time and relatively new to the team. Can you tell me anything about that match, or what do you remember?
I was about 17 at that time, 17, 18, and the thing I can remember most about it was Grassstrap and Greeno. The whole build up to the cup final had been building for weeks. You know, we were training 3 nights a week in preparation for it, and there was a big breakfast and all organised the morning of the match in the community centre. Molly Porter and Stephanie and all the girls were doing scrambled eggs and toast, and Grass was announcing the team in the hall. And Greeno was, you could say he was the star player. He's a centre forward. He was our captain at the time, and for whatever reason, Grass dropped him.
Do you want to tell us why you dropped Grass?
What was the reason?
It was a hard decision. I have the greatest respect for Gordon Green. So I have, like I say, I love him to bits. But at that stage, everybody knew Gordon's weakness. Like I say, he was a great goal scorer, probably one of the greats of Hanover, but his work rate was non-existent. That was his downside. No, he could have scored goals just for fun, but my decision was probably one of the hardest I've ever made. You know, being manager, I thought long and hard of it. Was between himself and Robert Love, Maggots, and Ross Sanderford. And the reason I went for Maggots that night of the final was because I knew Maggots would run himself into the ground, he'd throw himself about, he'd put in tackles probably that he shouldn't be tackling. And looking at Greeno's face when I announced the team, like I say, I just had to get it out of my mind and just concentrating on the final itself. I don't think his dad, Joe, he always reminded me of it, so I did why I dropped him. But Greeno was a true Hanover man that he was. He accepted it. I think he got a few drinks, and he wasn't even in the subs bench. I think Kyle was one of the subs.
Wayne
Stewart. And it was disappointing, for the players who didn't even make the panel. But if we'd have got beat that night of the final, probably I'd have been the worst in the world. But fortunately enough, my decisions was right, and it proved it, and that's what it's all about. You could be a hero one day and a villain the next. Guffer always said to me, he was asked me that questions many a time. People still talk about it. Was Greeno injured, or was he sick? Things like that there. And I says, no, it was just my decision.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I'd get more out of Maggots, and that's what happened. I've no regrets. If I had to do it again, I probably would. But that's football. So
you made the right decision.
Yeah.
I think Greeno tries to say that you had wrongly accused him of being out on the drink the night before.
No, Greeno had experience in the Irish League and the B division, so there was no. And like I say, I trusted all the players. It's like Nigel said, the young fellas. When you think back, the football then, you had the young fellas coming through. They could have played for Portadown or any other team, in Portadown in the morning, and they could play in the afternoon for a different team. That was before the rule came out now that the IFA had, and all the leagues have now in Northern Ireland, where you had to sign for one team, which it is nowadays, and you had to play for that team. You couldn't go from one team to the next, just for fill fixtures, things like that there. And all the young fellas that come through, and you look at them, Nigel ended up from a 15-year-old. Nigel's like myself, we have won 2 intermediate championships, so I have. And Nigel ended up captaining the team to some of our successful periods. And some of the young fellas that had come through the ranks, they still come down to the matches, they still support Hanover. Like I say, they go to any finals that we get into, and like I say, no, it's just a team that's always backed each other and always supported each other, even though the highs and the lows. And going back to the finals, the Bass Bowl, it was just one of the decisions. No, it had to be made, not for my benefit, but for the club's benefit. And like I say, I think the celebrations justified it after winning it, and the way all the players and all the committee and all the supporters got together after it to celebrate. It was just for the club itself, and that's what all that matters, the club.
So the final was at Banbridge. So the final was at Loughgall. It was played against Banbridge, and Hanover won 2-1. The newspaper article reads that Alan Gracie scored from outside of the box, and then Timmy Murdoch scored a header from a Patsy Porter corner. What can you remember your goal, Grass?
Well, it's not long ago. There's times, it's nice to have these reports, when you think about it. But yes, I can remember that we were getting beat 1-0 at half time. The second half just started, and we were playing as downhill. We had called it towards the Gulf course. And I remember I got the ball just outside the box, and I made some space for myself and just tried to hit the target. Unfortunately, it went in. But the football we played that day, and like I say, the bunch of players that we had available that day, in them days, it wasn't about how much skill you had. It was all about teamwork and the team playing together. I was an ex-Irish League player coming in with young fellas around me. But like I said, that night, it was more than I could have asked for from the young fellas I had at my disposal. And like I say, when you think of some of them went on to play, the likes of young Patsy, Porter, young Nolly Richardson, even they, when we all get together or all meet up, you look at them and you say, we're all friends, we've been friends since I've come to the club. Like I say, I hold them in the highest regard. Any matches we have, for the over 50s, over 60s, things like that there, they'll try and pull on a pair of shorts if we can get a pair to fit them. They'll probably put on the Hanover top, and their bellies is sticking out the front. But like I say, I think I've been fortunate, so I've had a good career playing football. When I first came to Hanover, I've always enjoyed it. I've been here nearly 45 years now, and like I say, it's been the time of my life, so it has. And like I say, I've met some wonderful friends and colleagues, and I couldn't ask for anything more.
So I've actually got the top that's signed by the players from that night as well, from the Bass Bowl final.
Well, have you? Where'd you get that?
Yeah, an agent. Long time from the scene now. Bring back good memories, Grass.
Yes, indeed. There's all the names. The owner just above the bar sign, Nigel McCartney.
Would you have been the youngest player in the team, Nigel?
With all me and Patsy Porter and Noel Richardson probably would have been all around the same age, all 17, 18-ish.
There's in the newspaper article too, I noticed again about Guffer, that actually said that Guffer had took sick during the final and he had to go to hospital. What do you remember?
Yeah, I remember that. I actually had cleared one off the line. They had took a corner and I had cleared one off the line, and I looked around, there was a whole commotion, and Guffer was being carried out till an ambulance in the car park in Loughgall. Then after we won all the celebrations and all, we went over to the hospital. We brought the Bass Bowl over till the ward to let Guffer see it. So he was on the ward, and Jimmy Stewart was down in casualty getting his broken nose fixed. He got a broken nose during the match. So
I see he also, in the same news article, he also got 2 Man of the Match awards for that night as well, Jimmy.
He did. He was brilliant. Yeah, he was brilliant, along with Grass and everybody else, but Jimmy was the standout.
Did you go to the hospital before, after, or during the celebrations?
This thing was during it.
You were only 17.
I was only 17. No. There's plenty of boys that made up for me, like.
Just going back on that thing about Jimmy Stewart, if you're watching this, Jimmy, in years to come, like I said, Jimmy's been on the phone to me, lately. He's over in Spain playing five-a-side walking football now, so hopefully the legs are still getting him about the pitch.